Hi everyone and welcome. During this multiple day resin art class, we're going to be learning a few different techniques that I use when I create my resin artworks. If you feel like you don't have an artistic bone in your body, don't fret, I've got you covered. This art class is all about mindful practice. So take your time, enjoy the process, and play with colors. It's not about perfectionism, especially when we're talking about resin, which keeps moving up to 12 hours after you've finished painting. Let's have fun, let's enjoy the process. This art is about relaxation. Let's get in the studio. Okay guys, so first things first is supplies for resin. Number one, gloves. You want to make sure that you are in one, even two pairs of these. Get yourself some nitrate gloves. These are the heavy duty ones, and resin is so sticky. So this is integral. Step two, I don't have my hair tie right now, but make sure that your hair is tied back. I have been in the situation where I've walked out of the hairdressers with my lovely new hair, dunked it in some resin, and yeah, I ended up having to chop it off, and that was great. So make sure your hair's tied back. Another good note is making sure you're wearing closed-in shoes, some protective aprons, or one of those full body painter suits does absolute wonders. A respirator as well, and I'll link some in the description box where I think they're good and they're a nice good fit. You can wear at minimum a P2 mask from like Mitre 10 or Bunnings. And if you really want to be using resin regularly, I would recommend getting a full face mask. So that's about it for personal safety gear. Moving on to supplies, you want to have a butane torch. This helps to pop the bubbles. Again, you can get this at Bunnings or you can get them at Mitre 10, but they're the ones that you have to use a lighter to light, and these ones have a little nozzle and they're way easier. So go to Bunnings or buy one online. They've also got refillable gas little things that you just click on and off. A good tip, which I don't follow myself and I really wish I did, is use a tiny bit of cling wrap, making sure you're not blocking this vent here, and just wrap it around so that when you're touching it with your resiny sticky hands, it doesn't then dry and stick your nozzle together. Other supplies you're going to need are some resin. I use a 2-part epoxy resin. Normally they come in a 1-to-1 ratio and sometimes a 2-to-1 ratio, and sometimes for deep pour resin, if you get into it and you decide to start doing tables and casting, you can end up using a 3-to-1 ratio resin as well. Heat gun. I love my heat gun. This is what I use to create all of my ocean waves and get that beautiful lacing effect. The heat disperses the resin and it breaks it up, creating those cells, which we love, and they look awesome. So get yourself a heat gun. Another good thing is reusable plastic cups that have the measurements on the side there. These are really, really helpful. Once the resin is dry, see if I have an example here. You can kind of just pick out all of that dried up resin. Make sure your cup's completely clean, and then you can use them again. So we like to reuse as much as humanly possible when using resin. Another thing that I love to reuse is giant paddle pop sticks. I probably take it a bit far. I reuse these like 40 times, but you can get packs of 100 for like $5, and they're really good. Make sure you get the fat ones. They're way more helpful in scooping that resin around, making sure it's super mixed. The next material that you really need to have is some tape to tape off the edges of your resin artwork before you start painting. Make sure you get the blue painter's tape. This is way more effective. It really sticks, so you don't get any drippy resin running down the side and on the underside of your painting, which can be a real pain to get off, and usually means that you either have to cut it off with an X-Acto knife or sand it later on. Too much effort, get the good tape, it's totally worth it. Baking paper, resin can't stick to it because it is oily. This means you can put it over your work surface and protect it. Other things you can use are a plastic sheet. Again, resin can't stick to that. So once it's dry, you can just peel it off. So now we're looking at resin colorants and additives. When I am using resin, I like to use a combination of acrylic paints, alcohol inks. These ones are from Copic. These ones are from Pinata. These ones are from Ranger. These ones are awesome, really good quality from the US, hard to get a hold of. And I also like to use Liquitex acrylic inks. You can make these colors a little bit softer. I find that this pink is a bit bright, so I like to use white and mix it in and soften it. They also have a range of metallic colors. Resin and oil are not friends, so if you have any oil residue from fingers or silicone oil or any other kind of oily thing that you might have touched during the day, if that ends up on your resin painting, it will create these like moon craters, and it's a headache. Just clean it with the isopropyl alcohol as best you can between every single layer. Other cute additives is glitter. So glitter's awesome. Glitter's really fun. I mean, I use it sparingly, especially the big chunky ones. But what I do use more often is mica powder. Mica powder comes in all different shades, and it adds that beautiful shimmery glossy effect that we know and we love with resin. That is it for the resin materials list. I will have a full description in the notes of the materials that I love to use. I'll also be introducing some pre-made resin kits that will have everything you need in it to get started in making your own art along with these videos. Next up, I'm putting on my gloves, making sure to pull them up. Then I'm going to grab my measuring jug, and using the measurements on the side here, I'm going to add my resin part A, followed by my resin part B. The next step is mixing it up using my paddle pop stick, and you want to mix really thoroughly. This should take about 3 minutes. A good rule of thumb that you're done is that you can't see any stringy bits in the resin any longer. Next up, I am mixing in the colors that I want to use for my base layer with some opaque acrylic paints and a little bit of mica powder for that shimmer that reflects in the sun. Next, I'm going to pour all of my colors into 1 cup. This is what we call a dirty pour. It's a really simple technique and it has beautiful results. Once I've mixed all of my colors into the 1 cup, I want to pick up my artboard and place it over the top of my paint cup, flipping it back the other way and then releasing it onto my board and letting it flow. This effect is awesome. Pick up your board and tilt it around to make sure the resin's covering all the edges. After this, you can use a butane torch to pop all the air bubbles. Just remember to keep your flame away from the resin. I've let my piece dry overnight and I've cleaned it with some isopropyl alcohol and a microfiber cloth just to make sure any dust that may have settled overnight will be cleared up. Again, I'm using a 1-to-1 ratio for my second layer and mixing that up. The colours I've chosen are a burnt orange, a deep purple and a baby blue. This is where I enter my flow state and have loads of fun. I never quite know what the outcome is going to be, but that is honestly part of the magic. So when you're up to this phase, just explore and see what you create. You can use a heat gun to get different effects. You can see here how I'm dispersing some of the colors. I like to add a bold stripe or a bold color at the end of my piece just to really set it off. So guys, welcome back. Something I just want to chat about: when your containers have dried overnight and there's some resin film stuck in the bottom, kind of just pop the sides off and you can pop that resin straight out and then just go around the edges, pick all those little bits off so they don't get stuck into your next batch of resin. And then your container is good to go again. This does the trick. It cleans off all the oil off of the surface and that way it's ready for the next layer of resin. Give it a good wipe with a microfiber towel. Again, you don't want any particles to sit on the surface of your resin before you pour the next layer. From this stage until the end of your painting, go wild, explore, get in the flow state, do whatever feels right. There are no rules with resin, and that is the best part about it. I started out soft and I ended up adding this really punchy, bright magenta mix with a purple color, which I think brought out the highlights. So that's it, guys. Thank you so much for joining me in this multiple layer, multiple day, how to create your own resin artwork. I'm really happy with how this little guy turned out. It's kind of like some wacky purple moon. There's loads of detail. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to send me a DM. I hang out mainly on Instagram at by Gina Kaye. That's Ginakaye.